you underassess your power in terms of ability to cause change. And that is because of your intrinsic humility that, that happens. I think we are capable of much more, and I think we can achieve much more. So the task force is a very, very consultative exercise. All stakeholders are giving inputs into the task force. It is, after all, the nation's task force. 9 state governments are involved in it. The major state governments are involved in it. So what is coming out is very robust. These are draft numbers. $20 billion is very, very aggressive. And I think we need to, temper with this. Obviously, you are an independent knowledge partner, so you will make your deductions based on interactions with everybody. But then the task force will have to sit down and, take a call on that. For example, PCB assembly is maybe too early to look at that. Obviously, that is the goal for everybody. But I am not interfering in your independence and jurisdiction. So may I request Vikas now to give his opening remarks. They will be so useful. And here is a homegrown entrepreneur whose father served the nation in a very important role. And he decided to become an entrepreneur. And that is what the Prime Minister's dream is. That not that people should stop serving the nation, but this is the best way of serving the nation, that you create value and create jobs.
Create jobs, number one.
Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you, Shashi Ranjanji. As you rightly said, right from the heart, the approach seems very nice. However, what we are talking over here is more like a marathon, and it has to be run year to year. So while we'll have to keep our milestones that both as an industry and the government we want to achieve, we'll have to track the feasibility of achieving those milestones. So from the year 2015 to 2019, as Bharat has said, the incremental value chain to move to India is a serious possibility. Yes, we'll have to also be prudent about what are the low-hanging support that is required to achieve this mega vision. So if I was to consolidate the whole presentation at your liberty, Bharat, and talk about this being a marathon, and let's try and peg for every 100 meter that we intend to run. I think the immediate challenges the industry has is the lot of support infrastructure which is required. And over here I'm not talking about the land and the water, but simple stuff like the problem in the customs. If I was to import CKD, today a bill of material of a mobile phone is a combination of more than 200 components. Now, when we get stacks of any component, just understand, even if one component stack goes missing, that holds the entire bill of material. And with the duty arbitrage of about 13%, which is there right now, that's too scary, actually, to think about long-term prudent value chain of production moving to India. And that's one of the key reasons why we've not been able to excite enough a lot of global bigwigs to come into India for production. While as a country, as a telecom industry, we happen to be the second biggest across the world, the lack of desire from these global manufacturers to come into India and set up a production, I think that's something that you as an independent value partner to the government, and the government has to think about. Stuff like setting up BIS, while we're completely adulatory to that, but the support infra needs also to be tracked by the relevant government departments. I mean, do we have enough BIS lab to test some 200 odd different models which gets launched in India? What is the usual time that is required, even if we assume just one test cycle per product? Do we have that infra? How can we inculcate that infra? How can we get people to set up those labs? And all these things have started becoming a dampener as enthusiasts like Micromax, when we move on to the value chain of getting the actual local production moved to India, those are becoming some very subtle dampeners available. Just to give you a very relevant example, there was a consignment of SKD which was coming in, and the display took some 10 days to get cleared from the customs. Now, that display has got moisture. So the entire kits of 80,000 units are now sitting, and we are trying to do what we can in terms of salvaging that. So one, it becomes a sales loss. Obviously, there's an opportunity. You have to sell it to the consumer, right? And second, then you're getting into redundancy. And let's be honest, re-exports from India for doing corrective actions and all, it's not an easy process. So, things in this aspect also needs to be prudently looked into. And I said, we really need to pace our every 100 meter as we intend to win the exact marathon. So I think I leave it over there.
So, thank you, Vikas. And, perhaps you were all anticipating some very big strategic things from Vikas, but true to his style, he just drills down to some key important points. And I think this is what will make India happen. If you are able to tick these boxes, this is a very, very small issue on the face of it, but this is a very critical issue. May I request Arvind to share his thoughts with us? Arvind, Bali has got enormous experience in manufacturing, and today they are entering.
Thank you, Pankaj. I'm seeing the present situation for handset almost similar as in 91, 92 we were seeing for color TVs in this country. That time, India was known as a screwdriver technology. We were getting picture tube and all the kits, assembling it. And at that time, Videocon, we set up a glass shell project, and also Semtel, JCD Electronics, they set up the picture tube plants. And when we set up those plants, definitely, it was very capital intensive projects, high-tech projects. And definitely, the whole world was very, very apprehensive whether India will be able to really get successful in that business, especially for glass project, because glass, only 7 leading countries in the world they were producing. And we entered into that field, and everybody in the world used to look at us. And at that stage, initial period, 2-3 years, we really suffered a lot. We were making huge losses. But government at that time was very, very focused. We got, as an industry, excellent support from our Department of Electronics. We got duties. They were also, at times, whenever it was required, anti-dumping duties were put. But the most important part was that we also, at that stage, there was a big transportation cost involved. It was a bulky product. It needed a container, and only ship can bring, and there was a lead time and also huge freight cost. Now, from that stage, initial 3-4 years, the government supported us. And from that stage, Videocon, we started exporting glass. And, when we started exporting to Toshiba, Matsushita, the leading manufacturers of the world, initially, even Mr. Dhoot could not believe that I'm exporting there. We got such a great success with that manufacturing. And then in 2004, we became so large in that business that we acquired Thomson world over. We acquired Thomson with factories in Mexico, France, Italy, Poland, China, and all those places. And I was handling that portfolio. From that stage, as far as TV manufacturing and color picture tube was concerned, we are still the last man standing as far as that business is concerned. We are the biggest exporter today. And now the technology has changed. Now, when this technology changed to LEDs or LCDs, again, there was a big challenge, whether we'll be getting that kind of support or not. But by that time, country had become more liberal. We had a lot of FTAs in place. And because of that, getting any support was very difficult. Plus, LEDs needed much lesser space, and it was much cheaper to import. So considering that, nobody could dare to really make an investment. Almost similar situation I'm seeing in handset. Handset also, it is a product which is, I think, more perishable than bananas. By the time, 1 month or 2 months, if you're not able to sell the product, you're gone, right? In such a situation, all the challenges, problems that we are facing, I think it is becoming very difficult for anybody to set up manufacturing here. as a country, I think we have to do a very radical change. I would say that something, for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, some solid support that, which either, like government should take a lead or they should give such fundings that, okay, nothing doing, 50% or 60% of manufacturing of 100% components or products has to be in this country. Otherwise, it is like sort of a ban. Until we do that, I think we will be always in that situation. We'll be always, in that kind of problem. And I personally believe that we have a lot of strength. I was running factories in China and I see what strength in India we have got. But the only way, I think, only thing on which we are actually missing is the kind of support Chinese government provide to their industry. I think somehow, that is missing. Some of you will be surprised that there are products from India, like for example, OFC. Today, there is anti-dumping duty from India when it's going to China. They're putting that to protect their industry. And we know that Indian manufacturers will never ever do dumping because, we don't have such system. Anybody will financially support. It is practically possible for us to export and make still profit, and that is why we are doing it. But they have put anti-dumping duty on that. So we have to probably come out with a very clear 3 years or 5 years plan which is driven by the government that nothing doing. I think we have to break this cycle. And once we break that cycle, I think we'll be home.
Okay, this was very passionate. I'm not sure under WTO quantitative targets whether they are feasible or not. We take it on board, we'll study it. And then see what can be done about it. Shashi, what is your take on achieving this $8 billion target, which Bharat says is quite achievable? So, do you see any challenges?
Challenges are actually many. I mean, what Vikas was just mentioning, in fact, this is the biggest challenge. Actually, not to be quoted. We don't have ease of doing business in this country. There is difficulty of doing business. And this is not at one place actually. This is in multiple places. This is just one story that you are narrating. Same thing is repeated again and again and again. So sometimes in jest I say that here actually if you allow people to make it easier for people to do, so many things can be done. Now it is within the priority of the government to move India from 134 or something that we are still in the age of doing business to at least bring 50. That's a huge task. That's a huge task. In some cases, we have been really able to leapfrog because of use of IT. But many more things needs to be done. If consignment comes and keeps lying for 10 days, what worst is that it gets damaged. Then what do you do? So these are so many challenges. We need to do something about is a key. We'll focus at key area, and once we say key area, let us have some fast track mechanism at the custom level. Take care to do that, because let's have a regular meeting, maybe every week some committee meets and takes care of, because this is a national program. We have to achieve it. If we have to achieve it, then you have to do these things. Otherwise, we will not be able to achieve it.
And what's your take, Vikas, please?
Yeah. I just wanted to add, because it's relevant, what Vikas said was exactly where the shoe is pinching, sir, and you rightly pointed out. One thing that has led to that, sir, apart from ease of doing business, is the whole issue of cost of compliance also, sir. While all of us want to be 100% compliant, we do not want the grey market to go in, but also there needs to be a balance. End of the day, what is happening is that any amount of fast-track mechanism, including the BIS example, which is a live example, which Vikas said, the amount of money today that we are spending on, despite that, is a case study in itself, sir. So that cost of compliance also, if you could kindly, that's a message that I wanted you to, sir, kindly consider. That yes, on one hand, we can do the ease of business part by fast tracking, making IT more, more and more IT enabled issues, but the whole cost is also increasing. End of the day, that is getting passed on to the consumer.
Thank you. Shashi, how do we become a 1 billion charger manufacturing country?
We have been here with 100 million.
Chargers with your
exactly.
ideas.
So we already have about 200 million capacity now, 100 in Chennai and 100 in Noida, with the new facility coming up.
And when will you export to China?
We are exporting in a little way, small way right now, but we will be exporting it in a very big way probably already in 2017 or 18. So Vietnam has been our biggest export destination. So from our point, exactly, I mean, adding to what Mr. Vikas also brought up, these two very critical items, especially ease of doing this. What we do in SEZs, I think it's been really an excellent process in SEZs. You just don't have to call anybody. So that kind of process is something that we have to replicate also for these domestic units. So I think that is something that we need to do, because when we're talking about more and more making here in India, the process have to be simple, number one. And second, also this test processes of BIS and these items. But as a global manufacturer, I think this is really doable. I mean, when we can ramp up 100 million pieces in less than 6 months, I think it's just a will that we need to do. Overall.
So you think we have deep cost competitiveness and we can beat China to it, become the major world destination in manufacturing charges?
Definitely. I mean, when we compare our own factories between Brazil, China and India, so we have a very good cost advantage here. Not only that, but even the skill levels, the quality levels are much better than in China. So this is absolute truth as far as our organization is concerned. Yeah, including the quality of the product. So the customer
kept asking these questions because the guest of honor said that the first thing is that we can do it spirit.
Yeah.
So I think this is a very responsible person saying that we are competitive.
Yeah.
Because industry is usually the crybaby, keeps on asking for things. But so we are quite different actually. Yeah.
That's right. Just to add on one additional item, since somebody brought this Brazil item, I mean, in Brazil, it has been possible. The government has been so supportive in developing the industry. Say they do have a production mechanism for that particular industry, where it's a must, whether 50% or 60% of particular commodity must be made in the country. Otherwise, you'll have to pay very high duties. So that is one way of looking at it also going forward.
They do component by component.
Exactly.
So they say that, okay, in the year one, you have to, out of this,
True.
so much will be local, so much can be outside.
True.
We have to balance our interests, various interest groups very carefully. You know, we have fledgling brands which have to, you know, get deeper into the market and grow, become global brands. Yeah. At the same time, we have to develop a component industry. And we have to develop it in harmony.
Yeah.
So that the cost to consumers doesn't go up.
Exactly.
And we balance everybody's interests very carefully.
True.
That is our attempt.
Yeah, Pankaj, I just want to, one thought on this table. These discrete components, can we not manufacture it in India?
Yes, absolutely, we can.
So what is preventing us from manufacturing those discrete components like capacitors, resistors?
Shashi, you take that. Yeah.
See, we have obviously been developing, I mean, in terms of the local content. So Telecom as a company, before even this Make in India concept, so we have been actually buying over 50% of our material really truly made in India, even the tier 3. So this electronics is something that we have to continue to import. But when we have made this exercise of developing and working with suppliers in India, so first and foremost thing is that the business culture is a little bit different than in China and India. So there people are willing to take risks and then go ahead. But here they ask you for guarantees. I mean, we have seen companies asking us for a guarantee that you will buy from us for the next 3 years. So if you do that, then we invest. So this is one thing. And second, definitely item is this cost of capital. So which companies are really apprehension of making big investments, even though it's not a very high-tech product. So this is the second thing. And the third item is definitely the scale. It really has to be in scale. You cannot make something just in a few million pieces. Yeah. So this has to be very mass manufacturing. That's only when you can be competitive, at least in this kind of discrete components.
And sir, we'll address the component by component. You see the strategic components of 4, which is SoC, display, lithium ion, sensors, and these are the key, this thing. So Dr. Saraswat is heading this committee now, which will look at strategic steps, you know, which the nation has to take and bring national resources to build that. So we understand that we are very wanting in technology and in capital. So I think these major, the cell technology, rechargeable cell technology, the display technology, and SoC, system on chip, and of course microprocessor. This is something which the nation will drive, and we will request you to come on board in that committee also, because this will really build the core high investment industry, core technology industry. In fact, this committee is called the Core Technology Committee. So, and we'll give you a report on all the components so that all your queries and anxieties are answered. Rameshji, your very valuable thoughts.
Well, I will touch upon some very basic fundas where we should be focusing to make this industry viable and sustainable in India. Mobile phone manufacturing is a game of large numbers, and large numbers means large employment. Very few private sector industries who have got into mobile manufacturing have the experience of handling the huge quantity of labor which is required to actually run this operation. Some of the challenges being faced are that when you set up a factory and you start recruiting people by the thousands, not by the hundreds, they are not available locally. They have to come from far-off places. There is a natural movement of labor from the underdeveloped states to the developed areas where employment opportunities are available. Now, this labor, to house them, to transport them, and to feed them, there is a huge challenge. And the government has to step in to create an enabling environment for this infrastructure to develop in geographical areas where mobile manufacturing has taken off or where investments are being made. So the entire ecosystem for supporting labor has to be there, number one. Number two, there has to be some mechanism of compensating the mobile phone industry for the transactional disability which it faces as compared to China. Somebody talked of cost of capital. There is cost of power. There is cost of logistics. Vikas referred to it indirectly by talking of the delays which take place in customs. But apart from that, there is the transportation cost, there is the holding cost, and all these costs cost in terms of finance. Our cost of finance is 12 to 14%, whereas a Chinese manufacturer pays hardly 4 to 5%. So there is a transactional disability on finance cost. The total transactional disability is estimated anywhere between 10 to 15% as far as mobile manufacturing is concerned. Now, there is a very simple mechanism which has been thought about and which I think needs careful consideration. The ministry has to take it up with the Ministry of Finance. All costs of such nature are captured in the balance sheet of a company, in the profit and loss account of a company. So whether it is interest, whether it is freight, whether it is logistics, these are all captured, these are audited. There should be a weighted deduction allowed for such costs in terms of finally arriving at the profit on which income tax has to be paid.
Very innovative.
So this is a very doable thing.
It also doesn't look like a subsidy.
It doesn't look like a subsidy. Yeah. It is a very doable thing. I think it should be seriously considered. The Ministry of Finance will turn it down in the first instance, but the administrative ministry has to push it, and there is a logic behind it. That is the second point. The third point is
with a sunset, sir?
Sorry?
With a sunset?
Yes, of course. Right. All facilities should have a sunset clause, but with a clear roadmap, so that the industry knows that in 4 years' time or in 5 years' time, this subsidy will no longer be available. So there has to be a sunset clause. The third point I would like to make is that to achieve this component industry target of $8 billion US, we are not only talking of bringing the vendors of components and sub-assemblies to come and make in India. We should not be talking of ease of doing business. we should be talking of ease of starting business. There's a big headache for a foreign company, small vendor, to come and start a business in India. In China, in the industrial areas, you have a plug and play. You have a shed, you have a power sanction, you have a water sanction, you have all the local municipal sanctions. All you have to do is to occupy the shed and start your production. So we have to, these are all revolutionary things, Shashiji, but I think unless we do all this, we would be actually chasing a dream. So these are the few points I thought I'll make.
Thank you, sir. I think these are very profound suggestions, and I'll again disagree with the guest of honor that this may look very impossible, but I think if we start going at it, we will definitely be able to convince people about it. So we will take this up, Mr. Vaswani. General Kochhar, you have a big challenge on your hand, and this is one thing which is, really exponential growth is happening in manufacturing. So is the TSSC geared up to this? Is the ecosystem geared up to this? Till now, everything has been a self-management by the industry, which is self-training and so on. We have started some support activity. Happy to report to all of you that the state governments are very, very cooperative now. They want to invest in skill development, particularly the states of Andhra, Telangana, even Uttar Pradesh to some extent, Maharashtra to some extent. So are you geared up for this challenge to take care of these 15 lakh new people? 14 lakh, sorry, 1 lakh are already there. Yeah.
No, we have 3.5 lakh already there.
In manufacturing, about 1 lakh.
Manufacturing, yes. The skill ecosystem is still a baby. So if I say that we are ready today, I'll be wrong. But that we are headed towards that aim, yes, we are headed towards that aim. And during this process of proceeding towards the aim, we are also learning and we are trying to implement whatever mistakes we are seeing in the ecosystem and ourselves. Now, I would say that it's very good that people are not only talking of hardware and software, but they're also talking of skinware, because without skinware, you're not going to go anywhere. All these are going to remain dreams. And to invest in skinware is important. To invest in skilled manpower is important. We should avoid pitfalls which we have had in the past. From engineering, we went to technology. From technology, we went to ITIs, and they all failed. And now we're talking about skill. And unfortunately, or because of whatever reasons, some of the mistakes we made earlier are being repeated again. While this is an ecosystem which must support the manufacturing industry or the consumer industry, is it really happening that way? Is the industry fully participative? Now, the proof of the pudding lies in the eating. If the supporting industry does employ people who are being produced out of this skill ecosystem, then yes, we are on the right path. If it is not happening at this manner at which it was perceived, then we are not going in the right direction. Somewhere we are missing. Some of the gaps that I see are, like Mr. Ramesh Vaswani rightly said, the manufacturing clusters are coming up in areas where infrastructure is available. Labor is not available there. Labor is available in different areas of the country. We can skill them there, but to get them into the manufacturing cluster is impossible. We've been trying that for the last 1 year. It is just impossible to get them here because the low wages which are prevalent in the manufacturing industry do not entice them to come and set up. It is not even sustainable for them to come and hire a house and also pay for their living at 7,000 or 8,000 rupees a month. So they rather stay there.
See, that was the point I was trying to make, that, for labor, you must have low-cost housing developed with government support by the real estate developers.
That's what I'm coming to, sir, next.
We have that commitment from Dr. Naidu in Andhra Pradesh.
So, Pankaj, what I'm trying to say is
scale it up to about 50,000, housing for 50,000 people. Yeah. He's committed that in both the areas, Sri City and Tirupati.
Yeah, but it has to be across the country. It can't be only in Sri City and that place. The point is that the government is spending a lot of money on skills, but they are doing it in the traditional manner. And the type of people that are being produced in the traditional manner, it leaves much to be desired. Maybe with the same money, if we subsidize things of this nature, this will give us better benefits. Second is involvement of the industry. Now, who's going to invest in equipment? All these are equipment-heavy roles in manufacturing. Who's going to invest in equipment? We are very well geared up in capacity. We say that we have a capacity of 75 lakhs today through our training partners. But 90% of them are training in service roles because they don't have to commit any equipment there. No capex required, or very little capex required. So if we are going to train on equipment, either the government has to step in, but the industry also has an equal role to play. Industry, maybe they can pull in CSR money and set up centers of excellence in a hub and spoke manner across the country, along with the government, and the entire ecosystem can grow. The end result should be quality skilling. And the skilling should be tailored to the industry which is employing that person. It should not be generic skilling. So we have a model in which we are saying a hub of international quality should be set up. Train the trainers. It is like a teaching hospital where trainers are trained in the college. We also do peripheral training. But the spokes are like clinics which are attached to experience centers or to contact centers where equipment is available. When number of people from various hubs come, train on the equipment, and thereafter they are tested. So that, I think, would be the right way to go. There is a lot more involvement from the industry also required, a lot more involvement from the government also required. By just setting up a sector skill council, if we expect the results to come, maybe we are going wrong. Industry has to sit with us. They have to give adequate attention to skinwear and the skill aspect. Unfortunately, in their day-to-day routines, skill takes a backseat. They're aware of it that yes, skill is important, but do they take it seriously? Very few people like Pankaj and Mr. Bali do. But I won't say that it passes muster with everybody. So that is something we have to get into. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ramu, when is Huawei setting up the big 100 million factory in India? There are rumors floating around. So.
R&D centers
Yeah, we do have. Yeah, we happens to be the world largest, probably third largest smartphone manufacturer. So having shipped out 100 million plus devices last year. So yeah, we do have R&D center in Bangalore. That's where we do the R&D, including for the smartphones. So we are probably the first one to come out even the SOS button before even government announced. So we start implementing in all our smartphones. So the development is already happening in Bangalore, whatever smartphones we deliver across the globe. And of course, we do have the local manufacturing center in Chennai. That's where we are manufacturing telecom equipment, networking equipment. So, I mean, but just to share the experience, the kind of support what we get in China and India, some of the issues I already talked. For example, if you go to Shenzhen Mayor, as a manufacturer, as an investor, you just go with the wish list 1 to 10, what you want. Across the table, all the approvals are given within the 1 hour meeting. You don't have to talk to any minister. No need to talk to any environmental minister, forest minister, any, a finance minister. The mayor has been empowered to give all the powers across the table within 1 hour. Yes, I mean, the winding up business is a challenge over there, but to get, the investment done, there are a lot of the incentives, even like the financing, what we were talking that, it would hardly cost about 4 to 6%. Even the green channel, what we see in China, for example, if I'm a largest manufacturer, even when we import, even export, because of course we import a lot of components from the developed countries like US and all, even there won't be any single customs person coming to our shipment and screen it. It's a green channel, completely green channel, both import as well as export. Of course, they do the retrospective auditing once in a year, once in 6 months. There will be huge penalties if something goes wrong. And also, there are ministers who are dedicated to a particular company. That if some company is exporting certain value, that minister is dedicated to that particular company. The minister will visit that company, ask, what are the problems we are facing? What do you want from the government? So we hope that Indian government would also come up with such kind of support That's how the ease of doing business is being done in China.
Yes, I completely agree with you. And don't be shy about this. Shout about this. This is what we need. You see, I think we've been in our shell for too long, and I think we should no longer be in our shell.
Yeah, I've got similar experience. Once in 2010, I was more focusing on telecom. That time, I got some people from China. They said that, are you still running your factory there? I said, yes, we are running. He says, have you taken any concession? Because a lot of people are closing factories and they're giving concessions. So I told my guys, okay, I'll come over. You make a list of concession what we can get. So when I reached there, my meeting was just within my reaching 2 hours. And the list which I saw was, it was so ridiculous. They said that we want water at 50% price, electricity at 50% discount, no land tax for 2 years. That way they made a list of some concession which in a year was running to almost like $5 million. So I said, I'm not going for that meeting. This guy is going to shout at me. Then he said, now we have given the list, please let's have a courtesy meeting. I went there. Mayor asked me only one question, that we have got your request. Can you confirm that you're going to run this factory for another 2 years? I say, yeah, we commit that. He says, okay, then we are sanctioning it. Just across the table, he just signed the letter and gave it to us. $5 million worth of concession, and all which were absolutely looking ridiculous were given to us.
It's not just China. Even I'll give a small example. This last point, what I would like to make.
The story, Ramu, is that the decentralization in India is absolutely essential, so that
exactly,
people like our guest of honor have a budget available where this can be dispensed and there are no questions asked. That's the kind of dispensation we need to bring, rather than having future.
We are now coming to a situation where somebody can file an RTI and say that you got request for 10 appointment. Why did you give to 2 and why not give to 8? Situation is coming to this stage.
Right.
So, what to imagine of giving money, even you cannot give time to such. There will be questions. Why you met so and so and why you did not meet so and so?
Pankaj, I would like to flag one more issue for our knowledge partners. China is always known for being very good at mass manufacturing. And India in the past and even today competes with China in many product lines by specializing in batch manufacturing as opposed to mass manufacturing. Now, I think we need to study that for our component industry to develop, how we can convert China's mass manufacturing technology to India's batch manufacturing technology, and thereby make it viable even though we may need smaller quantities.
Yeah, carry on, Ramu.
I mean,
before Ramu, just one question. There was a slide on R&D.
Yes.
Is there any specific suggestion on what needs to be done for R&D?
Yeah.
What government can do? Because whole lots of policies are there. In income tax, there are also provision where you can take, I think, 200%. Whatever you spend, up to 200% you can take deduction. So, what specific can be done?
See, in terms of the R&D, and if you look at any the company, whether it's Apple or Huawei, most of the people are already having R&D centers in India because you have a huge talent. I think the challenge what we are facing for the manufacturing. I'll give one more small example that even the developed country like UK, we just opened a global finance center in London where we are just creating a job opportunity for 100 people. You can't imagine a minister who is dedicated to our company, he would visit our company once in a quarter to ask, just for the sake of 100 employees. So, that's the kind of support, that's the kind of hunger what the UK government is having it. So, if somebody is creating an employment, let's say we have 8,000 employees in India, we'll have to go through the pillar to post. But having said that, things are getting changed. We appreciate that in the last 2 years. But many things to happen for ease of doing business. So why I'm saying that R&D is already happening, that because of the talent pool what we have. So similarly for the manufacturing, if you can create a good environment for the ease of doing business, things would follow because things are becoming more and more expensive in China. So they are looking because they have huge, the huge capital which they want to diversify, out of China. That's how, today if you can see it, probably last quarter, Chinese are the largest investors in the worldwide, even much bigger than the US. So they are looking beyond China, but ease of doing business is very, very important. Yeah.
On R&D, the 200% deduction is allowed when you do the R&D in-house. My suggestion would be that you should allow this even if R&D is outsourced. Because there are many organizations who are not able to set up in-house R&D centers and make it viable. On the other hand, R&D facilities are available with the engineering colleges, with several research institutes. So why not give this weighted deduction to a company who gets the R&D outsourced?
Yes, absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Because what are your views on how we overcome these challenges to achieve 500 million?
No, I mean, now exactly, I mean, this was the day 9 months ago when we actually started. So we have a fair bit of experience over here. Most of them have already been taken care of. Only issue that I will be coming back again to, sir, you, is more than anything else, I mean, as Indians, we are very entrepreneurial also. I mean, while Pankaj has been very vocal proponent about improving things and otherwise, but as entrepreneurs, we have been able to overcome quite a bit, and that's why we have reached where we are. So one suggestion that I was wanting to make here, and that's not really specific suggestion coming out, but overall on a policy side, especially when the Prime Minister is talking so much about doing business, attracting more investment, is the stability on policies also, sir. I mean, where Pankaj has been talking about a phased manufacturing program, I mean, that's something, if we can get that roadmap now, rest assured, sir, people will follow that and will be prepared for that.
Stability of policy is the key thing.
Yes, absolutely.
But we survive from election to election,
yes,
and day to day.
Yes.
So, how to guarantee that?
Other was, I mean, probably not very thought, but what Mr. Baswani was saying is that there is a lot of scope for design and R&D, sir. I mean, all the major players already have it over here. I mean, Motorola has it over here, others, Huawei has it over here. How we can really tap that particular thing, and once we tap that, rest everything also will start falling. So those are two things.
So I see Rajiv Chaudhary here, and you know, so Rajiv, any points you have on this?
Of regulation, in terms of compliance requirements, and I think in terms of people, we have a, you know, human capital is what we have. I can give the example of the software industry. I mean, we have come a long way, and the government has supported a lot in that. Sir, we need that kind of clarity, that kind of support, so that at least this industry can prosper.
Just to the side.
So to summarize, you know, the 2 points that I would say, you know, have clarity in terms of regulation and have clarity in terms of compliance. What to do is there, at least have clarity on those. So for example, you know, what I would bring in, the fact is on IP, you know, across the globe, you know, we are seeing the US, Europe, Japan, China, everybody is clear that, look, whatever return on IP is there will be proportional to what you have invented. It can't be taken on a, let's say, if you have invented something that is applicable to a component, you can't take it across to an end product. And it is all in licensing. And if there is clarity in terms of, you know, from the government that, look, you know, whatever R&D that you do, you know, whatever patents you get, you will be guaranteed a fair return. But it should be proportional on what you have invented, not on something that, you know, for example, we have the ridiculous situation of, you know, getting licensing on the value of taxes. Just imagine this industry has to pay royalty on taxes paid to the government.
That's work in progress, as the Joint Secretary said. And there is no final call on that. These are all interim things which have happened. Nobody's really said that this is the way it is. This is speculation. It's only some sort of loosely some interim orders in the courts are there, but this is no final definition. It has to crystallize.
What will definitely help is something from the government that, okay, this is the policy and this is how it should be done. I think that would go a long way.
I think the IPR policy document, which has now been published, covering other sectors, we need to have a very clear IPR policy document for mobile industry also.
Yes.
So, whereas the ministry has asked us to submit our comments, what I'm trying to say is that whatever decision the government takes based on the document which has been floated for comments should be very rational and in the interest of the nation as a whole, in the interest of the consumer in India. We cannot afford to load the Indian consumer with a cost of royalty on IPR, which is not fair. This is what I think we should keep in mind while framing the final policy.
Professor Natasha Naik.
Yeah,
So
actually,
you will give a academic view on the whole thing, and you know.
So I'm actually taking,
unlike the lawyers, yes.
I'm actually a law professor, so
Right.
I will be. So I'm actually going to be taking from Rajiv's point because I've been studying the licensing issues in the telecom sector, and especially one of the bottlenecks that was presented in the slides was that SEP terms are not recognized. So I think that's one of the major problems right now. I mean, first of all, there was this whole issue of what is the appropriate legal framework to look into disputes regarding fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory terms, whether it's a contract law matter or what kind of scrutiny should competition law have in this. Is it a public policy concern? And then now that, you know, with the recent judgment, the Competition Commission can investigate into this, still there is whether there will be a deference to the courts because the judgments are very different, as in they have different stances, almost opposite. For example, Rajiv raised the issue of what should be the base for royalty for a multi-component. Should it be the value of the chipset or the net selling price of the device? Now, the court saying the net selling price of the device, EMVR, and the CCI is saying it should be the SSPPU, the smallest saleable patent practicing unit. There is lack of evidence of holdups as of now, royalty stacking. But there is definitely a real likelihood of something like that happening, and that cost being passed on to consumers then. Because as of now, it looks like a very competitive industry, very fragmented, lots of players, consumer prices for consumers falling down. But all of these royalty concerns will have a direct impact on the manner in which it reflects onto consumers. Also, certain questions about there was an ad interim ex parte injunction. Now, treatment of injunctions, for example, how, these are the clarifications required that'll have an impact, or the treatment of non-disclosure agreements under competition law. So while all of this is pending investigation, I think, and also the role of the TSSC, the standard setting body in India, the IPR policies, should they be sort of designed in a manner that they take into account all of the stakeholders that are there, the manufacturers, which is the largest base in India, and so the IP takers and as well as the IP holders. So I think there's a lot of policy questions that need to be looked at and clarified.
There's another very strong pitch. I don't know whether people are talking sense or not. But they say that the patent department office has been very wanting in the grant of patents because they are merely algorithms and software related patents. And they have, over the last 2 decades, there's a stack of these patents which have got registered. Have you been able to study anything like that? And
no, not really.
Okay,
no, I
so
haven't looked at software.
This is probably something which you could.
I'm actually studying the competition aspects of this.
Right.
So the competitive harm that could potentially be caused by any abuses in the standard setting process through holdups, royalty stacking that can then translate or pass on as costs to consumers.
But if the component principle is accepted, then this challenge will not be there, perhaps.
Well, if the SSPPU methodology, you're saying,
yes,
a challenge in the sense you think the prices will fall?
No, then would there be sufficient competition and dominance, because patents create dominance by design.
But those are not always. I mean, patents create legal monopolies, but competition law is going to only scrutinize economic monopolies.
Right.
So only when a legal monopoly becomes an economic monopoly, it becomes a concern.
That's getting very profound and complex. So, yeah. Yes. Right. Yeah. Yes, please. Yes.
So I'm a Sunita Tripathi. I'm also an academic lawyer and teach courses related to IP licensing, mostly intellectual property, focusing on patent. And I've been studying a little bit about comparative studies, and I'm very glad that Mr. Ramesh actually in a very clarificatory manner could compare China and India's stances, both in terms of transaction regulation as well as in the way transaction disability percentages are working out. So we were actually, as academics, having this discussion about what is so different about an economy which is so similarly situated, but is equally growing, resource crunched as well as resource enabled. The difference between the way the Chinese government has been able to react to, say, technology giants who are in the ICT sector specifically is absolutely different from the way the Indian government has so far. So probably the marker or the difference is more about the engagement and the public consultation process, which you have rightly said has only started now. And the revised IP policy, which has just come in, does not have a very smart focus about the mobile industry as such, which is leading to a lot of sectors, including, of course, with telecommunication also becoming a utility.
But the acceptance of the fact that the user department or the technology department related to that needs to be consulted now, that is enshrined in the policy now.
That's actually enshrined in that sense, but
so DOT and IT need to be consulted now as per the policy.
Yes, like I mentioned, so these are government ministries which are working on specific areas without having an engagement with, say, universities or academics who are actually already working on those areas. So I think that's the link that the Indian government is missing in a very big manner. We have managed in some places in certain policies, but not so much in these emerging technology, high technology areas. Because if you want to consider our primary schools of technology, we are leading there. The research in our R&D is definitely government funded primarily. Industry consultation might or might not be invited. So while we know that, say, a minister or somebody is engaging with the industry out of their own account or duty bound or being duty bound, but the policy needs to reflect exactly how has it changed or sets the Indian socio-economic standards differently for matching the consumer demand as well as ensuring that the access requirement is met. With China, we are very aware that many of the universities are also actually owned by industry. So the policy in China would actually be driven by industry. In spite of that, the courts and the NDRC judgments recently
It's the other way around. The universities own the companies.
I'm sorry, I meant that. Universities actually own the companies.
Both ways.
So no, but largely the universities do that. So the universities are far more empowered to then drive the policy there. But here, since we do not have that situation, perhaps that needs to be bridged, and that's where we are different to bring in that parity. And so far as consumer welfare is concerned, it is nothing different from any user who's regularly using any of these technologies. So what is probably required is more engagement and bringing out the minutes about what these departments are doing, because even standard setting bodies have governments as members of them, but not really driving or being transparent, so to speak, to bring in a difference in where exactly is the Indian policy, so far as telecom or ICT is concerned, in comparison to China or even United States or Russia. So I think that's where, as an academic lawyer, I would say the engagement with industry and academia needs to be enhanced, and not just for the technology-specific industries, but also, say, legal and social science sectors.
Let me tell you something. You know, I'm very bitter critic of the government in most ways, but let me tell you, both the Department of Telecom and IT, don't confuse them with the standard setting body. Mm-hmm. They perform their sovereign function, and they have the interests of the nation at heart. So whatever is the final outcome will be, will crystallize all this. So, and your support of the academics will be very essential.
You see, my concern is not whether you charge, I mean, according to me, whether you charge on that particular technology or on the entire thing. I want reasonableness in what you are charging. See, if I feel that I should pay only 10 rupees, of 100 rupees, 10 rupees will be 10%. Of 10,000 rupees, it will be 0.001%. Okay, you say that I want only pay 0.0003% of total value.
So you set off a lot of hearts beating here. I can promise you that you set a lot of hearts beating here. Because quite a contrarian view, right? We are not even debating or recommending that the government steps in and puts its mind to what should be the percentage on the royalty, right? Because obviously that's a very financial decision and that's a very murky terrain to be in. But in your jurisdiction and wisdom, you can probably where exactly on what level does the technology come in and the fee for the patent should be given in. Let me complete, I'll just give you an example. We are all talking about connected cars now, right? A car costing about, let's say 2 crore rupees. Just understand 2% of that because of one component, a patent which talks about.
So 0.02 do na?
So again, now then we are talking about a very debatable subject. What we are saying is if it's a 2 crore worth of car, then it will be 0.2. If it is, it's so simple. I mean, at the end of the day, if we get down to where is the patent being applicable and hence the cost should be on that particular, the first saleable component where the patent has been levied, that's where it should be asked to be paid.
I'll give a contrarian view. In whatever little I know of patent wars on this matter, whether in US or in China, it has gone to the court. And court, either the two parties should contract and reach an agreement about the value. If they fail to do so, they go to the court. Now in court, each and every case is individually assessed and they fix it. Whatever 0.002 or something is coming from US court.
Sir, current situation is more like, you know, on the pharma.
Contrary to what you are saying, what we had proposed in writing to DAPP, which owns the Patent Act, is that very stringent provision that we had proposed from DOT side is that in case of SCP, if the both parties come to a terms, no problem. But if they fail to reach an agreement, then the patent body in India should be allowed to adjudicate. This is what we have written.
Sure.
Much stricter than what you are saying. We said, okay, so if they agree, fine, no problem. If they don't agree, the first dispute resolution mechanism will be with the Controller General of Patent, Trademarks and...
Sure.
Whose appeal will go anyway to the appellate, which is headed by a High Court judge or maybe a retired Supreme Court judge. But that was not accepted.
Sure.
That's beside the
point.
Sir,
just to give you an idea, I mean, we are talking about a process which is being sought or recommended by the beneficiary to be similar to pharma patent mein. Forget the pharma companies to pay the patent fee, but let the Scott Hospital who administers the pill to the patient and charges on that, uske upar patent lenge.
I understand your point that you are only making a difference of 1% in that whole product and you are charging royalty on the entire thing.
Exactly.
I understand your point. What I am saying is that, I am putting contrarian view. You think that it's worth only 10 rupees per, okay. Now that 10 rupees will be some percentage of 100 rupees and that 10 rupees will be some percentage of over value of 10,000 rupees. So you pitch, you fight for lower value. It doesn't really make a difference whether you calculate percentage of X or percentage of Y. You're like Arjun, your Nisana is that I should pay the least. So, that's your Nisana, na? That you should pay the least. And at least not, in any case, not more than what it is worth for. Okay.
Sir, because this is very controversial. So the base issue over here is from the perspective of reasonableness. See, wherever the patent is, and it is, remember that in this domain we are not talking about 1 or 2 or 10 patents. There are studies that say there are more than 2.5 lakh patents in one mobile phone. And this is just your one small particular component where it is responsible for interconnection. Because we can have a $50 smart screen with a $100 one, $150 one, and the bill of material will change. In today's day, the four most important components of a smartphone are your screen, your memory, and your battery. And the fourth one is your SoC, the system on chip, where all these patents are for interconnectivity. And what we are saying is that, look, you charge whatever percentage, but make it reasonable. Wherever your patents are, we will pay on that particular basis. That is the smallest component that is available.
Reasonableness.
Agreed.
When you make your patent SCP, you already commit to provide it on reasonable, frank terms. Now the question arises, what is reasonable? I mean, what is reasonable to him is not reasonable to me. That is the source of all dispute. You think that X is reasonable. I think no, it is not reasonable. So who will decide what is reasonable?
So, you see, okay, this seems to be a very, very serious concern then, because it has taken more time. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
My name is Prashant Iyengar. I am also a professor of law at Jindal University, and this is something, an area of study. Let me just lend my voice to both Vikas and what Rajiv was talking about, because the thing is that there are serious national, finance implications to this. Because when you allow, a royalty to be charged on the full price, it amounts to a national level tax or a cess on every single mobile phone that is produced in India. Now that cess pretty much goes to these, to a couple of companies who are repatriating this money outside and getting, rebates on in their home countries for that same royalty income for R&D purposes. So the thing is that this amounts to a national level kind of subsidy that Indian consumers are giving for R&Ds that are conducted abroad. So these are the stakes that are involved, and I think the government should take this into account before kind of pitching its tent on one side of the battle or the other. It's not simply, normatively about the small, whether you take the small unit or the big unit. But I think, the escape of royalty income from India should also be a component of our calculation.
Just one point. Adjudicate. Now, in current system, maybe Competition Commission will adjudicate, or maybe the courts directly will adjudicate. Who should adjudicate this?
So, if I may just step in there.
I think the regulator should step in, because the thing is that the government has specified these as standards.
But for practical reasons, if I can...
Competition Commission is already engaged.
So, if I can just...
Let me raise a question to you. This big outcry that these... can there be 1 lakh patents of something? This really startles me, because I thought patents was inventiveness and inventions. So you rarely patent something. No, how come there are is this a fact or it's just a joke? That there are 1 lakh patents or 2 lakh patents?
There are credible studies. So for example, RPX Corp.
Is that right?
Yes,
there are so
true.
many patents? That's incredible to learn that there are so many patents in one single technology.
No, but it is an assembled technology to be functioning in various ways. Probably one incorporator does not have that expertise, and so licenses out together.
So with the CRI guidelines, is there a synchronization? Are they in sync, or there is a violent disagreement?
The portions of CRI are a little silent on the fact of the way licensing between an implementer or a software technology creator really functions. So I think that is where the public consultation is being a question, because we have, when it comes to software protection, is actually more on copyright side, and that's the Indian specific standard. The computer-related implemented or computer-implemented technologies are more on the patent side, which is a more Western notion, which is now coming in through incorporators and builders there. So I think the policy change and the shift is more on the licensing aspect, which is contract-based, and that's where the software patent question is hinging on, whether you need to have certain open standards and open licensing, balancing it with proprietary licensing, or do we need to take it away from patents completely and then stick with copyright?
So, you see, as we know that, trafficking in young underage girls is a fact in India, and that's happening. And there are orders from the constitutional courts that the police is bound to take action. You can't say that it's existing, So, if this is really true, then should we flag this off that the sovereign is bound to take action? And is that out of your academic understanding that this needs to be done? That there are patents existing which never could be patented? So can there be a sovereign action on that, suo moto, or a court should direct that?
So this is actually an administrative question more so, because the patent validity or patent grant is the patent office's administrative function. Having said that, there is an information asymmetry kind of a situation where there is not enough wherewithal or expertise with the patent office to that extent. So it does an administrative function of allowing it to have passed the validity test as per the patent.
Mr. Chairman, I think we've treaded into very dangerous territory, and I think we need to have a separate conference on this.
So if I can just last comments, and it's actually complementary to your comments, and so I wanted to make this remark because I'm comparing the way our technology regime is actually developing so well. Is one thing, when we discussed about who is going to resolve the dispute about what is reasonable, etc., let's not actually close our eyes to the fact that you do have an innovator which is probably a big player in the market and an implementer which is coming in. So instead of getting into the litigious issues within the court, they might actually just settle amongst themselves. Then what happens to the way the sector needs to be regulated? That's where the government comes into being, in the biggest work.
So we have to flag off something with the minister in the afternoon.
Certainly.
So while the other things look very organic, this looks very esoteric, and I'm not sure what we are capturing out of it. Any thoughts on that? So one thing probably could be that, there cannot be 100,000 patents of anything. So this prima facie looks suspect. And the CRI guidelines, there needs to be a sovereign audit probably of all that has happened. Because the sovereign can't sleep over it. That could be one thing. Other things are all, I think, actions which are in process.
Yeah, I'd like to add one thing to this. Yeah. Now, are these legal monopolies through IPRs, are they creating economic monopolies? If they aren't, so if they are, that's a separate matter. Otherwise, it is between him and who his partner is, whether he should have a commercial deal or not. So I think first question is to see whether these IPRs, legal monopolies, are they creating economic monopolies or not? And if they are, then we have to find who is going to deal with it.
No,
and what is the sense of reasonableness?
It's like marital rape, you see.
See, typically,
Bharat, not as simple. In case of other patent, I have a choice either to go to you or not to go to you. But SEP is slightly different from a normal patent, because here perforce, because of standard, I have to go to you. So this is slightly different from, in the normal patent, you both negotiate with each other, no problem. I either take your technology or not take your technology, but SEP is slightly different from a normal patent, because here I can't function without you. I have to go to you.
Exactly.
I have to go to you. So there's this thin difference between normal patent
and SEP.
You.
And therefore the concept of reasonableness comes in, and then who adjudicates and who's...
So you suggest who should adjudicate?
If I may say, the overarching interest on whatever we decide should be the ultimate consumer interest. Because whatever we have to balance the interest of both the right holders as well as the consumers. We can't say that we will do it unfairly reasonable for one, maybe not reasonable for somebody else, but whatever it is, ultimately the test is consumer interest.
You are 100% right, but who will adjudicate? You answer this question.
Sir, if it's the consumer interest, then the regulator needs to come in, the Competition Commission of India.
So it is already engaged.
Well, whether the question is still not resolved, if there is deference to the courts, because it's just 30th of March when the judgment came out that the Competition Commission can even continue with its investigation. So we are very far from any kind of clarity on who's going to have the final say, who's going to bell the cat on this.
Yeah, completely complementary to what Natasha ended up saying. Currently, the adjudication or the judgments are being passed by the courts in that 45 minutes to 1 hour hearing that they're doing right now. So, and yes, to what you said about the legal might converting into economic might, my common sense says, if the border rules are getting implemented in any particular kind of a situation, it has to have an economic impact. Otherwise, border rules would not have been invoked.
It's actually a disastrous economic impact because of a legal monopoly. There is a huge element of arm twisting, and so one has to really safeguard against that.
So I think any last thoughts from anybody? We'd like to close the session, and we'll work after this on the takeaways from the session. I think it was absolutely wonderful. Vikas?
Just a small one. So we took this opportunity to actually point out a lot of things which are further desired, but to, in the same spirit and in the same breath, I would also like to compliment and congratulate the government in terms of whatever they've done till now. And the whole idea of giving these further inputs is basically to ensure and, promise the mission that we are talking about. There's a heartfelt intent and a desire to actually achieve that. So the only reason of pointing this is between the two stakeholders of the industry and the government. We are not missing out anything, but we're completely, adulatory to what the government is trying to do. And we completely have faith. In fact, it's the first time the industry is not second guessing any of the government initiatives. So I completely congratulate the government on that.
And I think the responsibility given to the task force to really craft, and as the Prime Minister said, that it's not a very big target. And ENY is so knowledgeable, they say it's not a big challenge. So I think it's all going to happen. It's a wonderful spirit. But we'll, together, all of us will overcome these challenges. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mohindroo. We'd also like to thank Mr. Shashi Ranjan once again for joining us today, our guest of honor. And ladies and gentlemen, with that, we'll wrap up this session. We have lunch for 1 hour, and we request all of you to kindly reassemble in 1 hour because the Minister,